Czechoslovak composer, conductor, and pianist Vitezslava Kapralova was an unprecedented talent. Her time on earth was brief, yet she managed to make a mark on the canvas of humanity. That is, until her death at the age of 25, that coincided with the beginning of World War II. She was dying in a humble hospital in southern France as Hitler's troops entered Paris. Along with everything beautiful and promising, she was swept away by the horrors of the war. She was born in 1915 in Brno, the capital of Moravia, and at the time a province of the great Austro-Hungarian Empire. Following in the footsteps of both parents, she decided to become a professional musician at 15. By age 20, music critics hailed her as a mature composer, winning national and international competitions, and taking Europe by surprise as a stunning conductor as well, something that was unheard of at the time, especially amongst women. Obstacles of social mores never bothered her. Music was everything. Nothing else mattered. Vitka, or Vitulka, as she was endearingly called, was a tiny little thing. Her delicate constitution was childlike, but she had the soul of a lioness. It looked almost comical when this fragile being behaved like a strong, determined, self-assured, natural leader. Her petite face was symmetrical and feminine, with a mischievous spark in her eyes, but she was not born with the beauty of an actress. Her charm stemmed from the inside, the strength of her soul. She was like a spring day of worry-free youth, an eternal spring of genius.
this was my favorite piece to play, The Spring by Josef Suk. My childhood was quite beautiful, in spite of the fact that father had to go fight in the First World War to Albania. The boys and men were supposed to return before the plums ripen in 3 months' time, but often they did not return at all. Mother and I moved to grandparents' village. We had everything we needed there, a beautiful orchard, plenty of fruits, vegetables, even chickens. So we did not starve like many others did. It was a beautiful time, and I loved to play outside in the fresh air. Oh, how the breeze was playing with my hair, just like in the next part of Suk's Spring, called The Zephyr, the Breeze. The bushes were my audience, and the trees were my orchestra. I did not know what conducting was, but I was imitating the choir master at my father's music school. The way he was waving his stick around, I thought he was doing magic. And everybody was following him, no matter what he did. People were mesmerized. So I thought, well, maybe one day I will do the same. It was my dream. Well, then one day, a beautiful fall day, everything changed. Mother ran into the kitchen, lifted me off the floor, and started screaming, "Tatíček se vrací!" Daddy is coming home. We went outside, and on the streets, people were dancing, hugging each other, and waving this new flag, not the red, white, red I was used to see from the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. This one was red, white, and blue, my favorite color. On the streets, everybody was running around and dismantling those double-headed eagles, the coat of arms of the monarchy, and people were screaming out, "Konec žebrotě! Ať žije Československo! End to poverty! Long live Czechoslovakia!"
Then they got quieter, put their hand over the heart, and started singing in unison the national anthem. Kde domov můj? Where is my home? Where is my home? Over meadow, waters are streaming. On the hills, blue forests dreaming. Flowery world, spring's happy skies, like an earthly paradise. There's the land so full of beauty, Czechia, my fatherland, where God himself to man had spoken. Gentle be, but never broken, ever cheerful, hopeful, strong, bravely thwarting any wrong. There's the land of Czech honor, Czechia, my fatherland. There is lightning over the Tatras, thunder wildly beats. Let's stop them, brethren, after they all disappear. The Slovaks will revive.
It was not until much later that I realized that this day changed our nation's history. After almost 400 years of subordination to the monarchy, the independent Czechoslovakia was declared on October 28th of 1918. The first leader was our first president, Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, an enlightened man. The victory is beautifully captured in the last part of Suk's Spring. At 15, I have decided to become a professional musician. I announced it to father who thought I would be a teacher. He thought I was too sickly and too fragile and too small. My hands were too small to be a pianist. But I said, well, it doesn't matter. I did not tell him what specifically I wanted to become because he made such a ruckus. I did not dare. I have decided to study composing and conducting, perhaps the only two fields not open to women. Well, I loved the Brno Conservatory. Everything was wonderful. I was so hungry for knowledge. The only problem was that I was finished before everybody else even started. And then I was also getting in trouble with the teachers because they thought I should copy them. They would say, Vitka, you first have to learn how to do things properly. Then you can do them your way. But I thought, why not just do them my way?
The one thing that held her back was her health. She tried to hide it from teachers and classmates. When she was 9, she got tuberculosis and was sent to Smokovets, a sanatorium for 6 children, from which many did not return. Its reputation was so infamous that parents would warn their children when they misbehaved. If you don't behave, I will send you to Smokovets. She missed several months of school and later had a hard time shaking off the stigma of a terminally ill child. Children avoided her, which only pushed her to retreat to music with more fervor. In moments of sadness, she loved to play Leos Janáček, her father's teacher. She loved nature, and this was her favorite, the blown-away leaf from the overgrown path.
in 1935. I graduated from Brno Conservatory. I was 20 years old, and I was ready to conquer bigger places. I thought, well, first stop should be Prague Conservatory. So I went there, graduated after 2 years, and looked for the next higher ground. It was Paris, naturally, the musical mecca of the world. I loved Paris. I have proved myself in our lands. But what I really wanted to do was to be victorious, well, in the musical world. After all, my name, Vitezslava, means the one who celebrates her victory. When I came to France, I rented a small apartment on Avenue l'Observatoire, just opposite Jardin du Luxembourg, the Luxembourg Gardens. There was a statue of Hector Berlioz right looking into my windows, the famous French composer of Symphonie Fantastique. The apartment was tiny, but it had a beautiful, spacious, sunny balcony from which I could hear all kinds of birds every morning, just like back in Brno. So I gave them all names, counted 12 different bird songs. Of course, I had a beautiful little spinet piano, much smaller than this one, on which I composed from morning to night. I woke up in the morning, went to the table, went to the piano, practiced, composed, had a little bit of a breakfast of potatoes and eggs, then composed until I could no longer hold a pen. I missed my homeland. In moments of nostalgia, I would play the poem by Fibbich, a piece my father used to play for me as a child. But my idyllic setting in Paris was a stark contrast to the dark clouds that started to set over the Central European skies. The totalitarian regimes, first in Italy in 1922, then in 1933 in Germany. They took over, and since then the rest of Europe could only watch in disbelief as decent people turned into brainwashed monsters. The fear of losing freedom, the fear of losing peace, even our so very young country, was paralyzing me. I did not like to dwell in difficult pessimism, but it was impossible to be so far away from my home country. But I always turn to music for solace. I think the passion and rawness of Leoš Janáček's music perhaps the best express the oppressiveness of the situation, the feelings we knew so well from the times in the monarchy. I will now play for you Janáček's sonata. The first movement is called the Presentiment. the second movement, the death. They beautifully express the sentiments of the time.
All Czechoslovak artists wanted to do something through their art to counteract the feeling of desperation and helplessness. Vitka composed the military Sinfonietta. She wanted to be the first composer on the forefront of fighting for her country, at least intellectually. To disperse any doubt about the role of the piece, she dedicated it to the President of Czechoslovakia, Edvard Beneš.
I wrote to all of the highest places of the Czechoslovak government to try to premiere this piece, the Sinfonietta. For months, I got no replies. But finally one morning, Senator Plaminkova called me the Iron Lady of the Czechoslovak government. She scared even the most seasoned of politicians. She said, "Miss Kapralova, you are to play and conduct your military Sinfonietta in front of the president. Be at the rehearsal tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Good luck."
When she stood in front of an orchestra, one could barely see her small body in a black coat and bow tie. As she came to the podium, there was a loud murmur from the orchestra, dignified gentlemen in their late 40s and older. It was as if they were saying, "What is this little girl thinking, trying to conduct us?" But as she began to conduct, the orchestra became one large breathing organism, something only great conductors achieve. They became the music.
More rhythm. Yes. Rhythm. it was a great success, a greatest honor of all for me, of course. Afterwards, President Beneš showered me with compliments, both as a composer and a conductor. I was so nervous and I had so much respect for him. I just uttered something like, I'm in seventh heaven, Mr. President. I'm still beating myself up for not coming up with something a little bit more eloquent. Plaminkova didn't like the piece, or me, I could tell. She talked to me afterwards and said something like, "But Miss Kapralova, why do you have to compose so modern or something? Can't you do it prettier, like Mozart?" I held myself back, saying calmly, "Senator Plaminkova, the times we live in dictate what I put in that music. Looking at our dark future ahead does not make me want to compose like Mozart. I only express the feelings of our nation in my music."
Vitka's depressive feelings were soon to be transformed into a completely different emotion, one that caught her by surprise and overcame her completely. In Paris, she met the perfect man, a mentor, a teacher, a colleague, and the love of her life. He was 25 years older, the well-known Czech composer Bohuslav Martinu. He was to be her teacher at the École Nationale, but after the first lesson, it was clear that their relationship would be one between equals. He critiqued her pieces and she critiqued his. They were quite a duo. Martinu was tall and socially awkward, bony, shy, with a little hunch from leaning over the scores.
We called him the shotgun, because he was always standing in the corner, like a shotgun, waiting to be told what to do and what to say next. I was about half as tall as he was, and twice as loud and energetic. He said I was his perfect antidote.
Then came September the 29th, 1938. The Munich Treaty was signed and Czechoslovakia's fate determined. Everything changed. Her homeland was given by Britain and France to Hitler, offered like a sacrificial lamb to appease the devil. President Beneš went into exile and set up a Czechoslovak government in France and Britain. From that point on, her creativity could not be stopped. Her military Sinfonietta won the International Society for Contemporary Music Prize, the most prestigious award. It led to her conducting the BBC Symphony Orchestra to great acclaim.
Back in Paris, my relationship with Martinu was on the rocks. He was in many ways the perfect man, except for one. He was married to Charlotte. He wanted to start a new life with me in the US. I even applied to Juilliard. After all, Europe was becoming a battleground. But after about a year of our relationship, I realized he will never leave her. He was so grateful to her for being by his side for all those years of him being an unknown composer. It was during this time I wrote my April preludes, Dubnová preludia. I dedicated them, 4 of them, to the finest Czechoslovak pianist of that time, Rudolf Firkušný. My creativity was bursting during this time. It is as if the fear and all of these terrible things that were happening were bringing out everything inside of me. After all, I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow. My pen did not move fast enough to capture all of the ideas that were streaming out of me. It was during this time that I started to have bouts of unexplained stomach pains and terrible coughing fits. If only my health were more cooperative.
A year before her death, Vitka met Jiří Mucha, the son of the famous Art Deco painter Alfons Mucha, who created the beautiful entrances to the Paris metro. Jiří was a young writer, full of ideals, just like Vitka, and completely the opposite of Martinu. They married in a few months, in April of 1940, less than 2 months before her death. When they were together, nothing else existed. No war, no exile, no fear. They were like two passengers on a small boat, sailing on the stormy, tempestuous sea of history. They knew they might be swallowed into the darkness of the unknown. They were ready to fight for their freedom, at least for the next generation.
Thinking of what was happening to our little country, encroached upon by danger, that little piece of land that contained our childhood dreams, the life as we knew it, everything was in jeopardy. We could not stand it. Only thing we could have done, and we could do, was to hold each other as tight as possible and to hold on to music. I poured my heart into these 4 April preludes about Czechoslovakia, about Martinu.
Vitka was burning with an internal fire of genius. It was as if she knew she did not have much time. But her emotional state and the long hours of work left her often with no time to sleep. Exhausted and undernourished, she was often sickly. Soon after Vitka and Jiří married, Jiří was drafted. Vitka fell sick again. Only this time the pain did not go away. She was rushed to the hospital and given morphine for pain. When Jiří came to visit her, he found his young bride white as a sheet. The doctors did not know, but suspected tuberculosis miliaris, tuberculosis in the blood, a certain end. She died with Jiří by her side, but her last thoughts were of Martinu and her country as she pleaded to be taken home to Czechoslovakia to die. Vitezslava Kapralova was born and died during the uproars of both world wars. Her life was not much different. She fought for what she believed in the power of music and her genius in expressing it. In her last days in the hospital, Vitka wrote in her diary, Life is based on the contrast of good and evil. We must search for the good
with open eyes
and let negative make us stronger.
Rejoice in the smallest little things and always have music inside ourselves. We are temporary, but music is forever.